Hyungmyeon, the time when ceremonies begin. 1. Gyeongbokgung Palace's second gate, the ceremonial gate. Gyeongbokgung Palace has several gates. If the gate in front of you is Gwanghwamun, the gate you encounter next is Hyungmyeon. This gate looks like a simple passage on the outside, but it was actually the most symbolic place, where the formalities and procedures of the Joseon dynasty began. Hyungmyeon, which means to raise courtesy, was literally the gate that announced the start of ceremonies and protocols within the palace. On days when the king welcomed government officials, days when foreign envoys entered the palace, and days when banquets were held within the palace, everyone who passed through this gate would put strength into their feet and catch their breath. Only by passing through this gate could one go to Junjongjeon, which meant that they were close to the center of the country. 2. The gate came alive when the drums sounded. There is a special time in the front yard of Hyungmyeon. That time is the moment when the drums sound. When there was a big event in the palace, the drums were first sounded to let everyone know. When the drums were sounded 3 times, the soldiers lined up and the subjects stood in a waiting posture. Some days, the people were excited when they heard this drum sound. And on other days, they were afraid. On the first day of the first lunar month, the day the king came out to greet the new year, the drums were sounded loudly. On the year of Byongja, the day the king personally inspected the soldiers, the drums were sounded low, and on the day Crown Prince Hyunmyeong ascended the throne, the drums were sounded powerfully. The sound of the drums was like knocking on a door. Hyungmyeon gate moved to the sound, and the inside and outside became one with the sound of the drums. 3. Why envoys got off their horses and walked. When envoys from abroad arrived, they had to get off their horses before entering Gyeongbokgung Palace. The place where they had to get off was in front of Hyungmyeon Gate. It was not polite to go see the king while riding a horse. They got off their horses, bowed their heads, and began to walk slowly. The envoys felt the air inside the palace differently. From the moment they entered Hyungmyeon Gate, their steps became more cautious, and even their breathing became controlled. It is said that some envoys were so nervous that their palms sweated. The reason was simple. All the palace maids, civil servants, military officers, soldiers, and even the king's gaze as they passed through this gate were focused on this gate, the face of Joseon. When the envoys returned to their home countries, they were always asked, what was Gyeongbokgung Palace like? Most of the stories they told began at Hyungmyeon Gate. That gate was tightly closed, but I could feel the weight of courtesy. 4. The gate where the palace maids whispered. Hyungmyeon Gate was also a special place for the women of the palace. On days when foreign envoys came in, the palace maids who usually lived quietly looked out the window with a slightly excited heart. This envoy is young and handsome. I heard he even carried a sword when he rode a horse. The court ladies would quietly smile and straighten each other's collars. No one specifically said they would go out to see, but everyone's feet secretly headed toward Hyungmyeon. They did not go to see the gate, but wanted to see people coming from outside the world. It was curiosity and a small consolation for their lives that could not move forward. Their whispers were hidden behind the gate, but they seemed to be heard from deep within the palace. Hyungmyeon held countless gazes and stories. 5. The ceremonial passage through which the king and queen passed. Hyungmyeon was not just a gate for envoys and subjects. The king and queen also passed through this gate when they officially moved. When there was a great national ceremony or a special event for the people, the king would prepare his procession and pass through Hyungmyeon. At that moment, the gate became not just a space but a passage. A passage of time, a passage of ceremonies, a passage of people. The subjects bowed their heads before it, and the people prostrated themselves on the floor. The king and queen thought of the country and the people as they passed through the gate. On some days, the king's footsteps as he passed through the gate were heavier than usual. It was a year of war. On some days, the queen's footsteps were lighter. It was the day she had her son. The gate rang along with his footsteps. Hyungmyeon silently opened the way, embracing all emotions. 6. Hyungmyeon on an ordinary day. Not all days were days of ceremonies and envoys. Hyungmyeon was still there on ordinary days. Even in the flow of weekdays when soldiers were changing and servants came and went, the gate quietly maintained its center. Hyungmyeon on such days was even more beautiful. The sunlight fell along on the gate pillars and the wind passed by and brushed the stone railings. Occasionally, a magpie would land and perch on the gate, quietly watching for a long time before flying away. The court lady who saw that scene said she could never forget that moment for the rest of her life. Hyungmyeon on that day silently embraced the sky. 7. Passing through the storms of history. Hyungnyuman also went through many trials. When Gyeongbokgung Palace burned down, dynasties changed, and the country fell into chaos. This gate was always there. People tried to rebuild it, and it opened again. After liberation, people who looked at the gate made a promise to themselves. This gate was not just for the past, but also for the future. Hyungnyuman was a gate that preserved Joseon's etiquette, and became a gate that transcended the times and remained in people's memories. 8. Today's Hyungnyuman. Today, Hyungnyuman is a space where tourists come and go, and where the traditional guard-changing ceremony is held. People take pictures and enjoy the scenery inside the palace. As they pass through the gate, a child says, "Mom, why is that gate so big?" The mother answers, "That gate contains people's etiquette." Hyungnyuman was a gate that preserved Joseon's etiquette. Now, people all over the world look at, walk, and feel that example. Times have changed, but the spirit of the gate remains the same. Some say that they still feel the need to pay respect in front of the gate. That is why Hyungryman is still alive today.